We're talking about conversational fields, and the first field is politeness in a container. A container is a set of people and a specific setting that they're in. So if either one of these factors changes, then it can be considered a different container. So about the politeness, it is about there are certain restrictions in the inherited norms, which means that people bring a certain norms when they come to, for example, a group setting on how to interact, how they would act and think, and depending on the context and the background that they come from. So this phase can be considered as rule following, as people as what people really think won't really come up oftentimes. So if we put this in relation to Cantor's 4-player systems, it would be characterized by the move follow category. So there is a certain crisis of emptiness where you can't really make dialogue happen and you don't know what is gonna happen. So for this, the solution, the leadership style is the shared monologue, which allows for dialogue to happen. This is something that cannot really be pushed. It's more something natural that happens. And so the solution is to make people comfortable to express their opinion, basically.
Yeah. And for the second field, it's about instability in the field. As the containers that Arthur mentioned, this is about the breakdown in the container, meaning that people start saying what they think, but this results in a clash of opinions. And in Cantor's 4-player system terms, field 2 is characterized as by the move oppose sequences. Followers and bystanders tend to be silent and made to feel powerless. I would like to emphasize that many groups never get past this point. And the great quest in this phase is to establish a new set of rules for the group to work with. But there's still a lack of or no real reflection on what is happening. And people may advocate their positions, but will likely not stop to inquire into what led them to think what, or as they do. Yeah.
Cool. And then if you manage to get past the field 2 and go into the third field, it's about inquiry, and this one is when it shifts more from third-person data into first-person data, where people start talking for themselves as well, and people start being more reflective and curious. And this is where people are now starting to be prepared to begin to explore the nature of these structures that guide their behavior and action. And they're also more happy and inclined to do so publicly instead of holding this to themselves. And there is a large thing where that there is no feeling of need for people to agree with the shared opinions, and they don't need for anyone else to agree with them. And if you manage to get to inquiry, which, as we just mentioned, a lot of people don't necessarily make it to, then you can, if you're very lucky, in rare circumstances, make it to the fourth field, which is flow, and which is creativity in the field and generative dialogue. This is where everyone is kind of in a, what do you call, a weird zone, where people start generating new rules for interaction, where they're personally included, but are also fully aware of the impersonal elements of their participation. And people may respond not by reacting to others' experiences, but by connecting what was happening in the conversation with what was happening in themselves. And people also become quite understanding of one another's inability to be articulate because they experience their own limits. And I think this is the kind of magic space that everyone should aim for. And this is where everyone starts building kind of more a mutual understanding and can adapt their pre-existing notions and sets of rules to a new one that's aligned in between people. And then the last thing about all the fields is that they have different qualities for silence and time, where there's the point where silence has a different meaning and feeling in all the 4 phases, and it becomes more powerful and has a larger influence the later stage you get into. And also with the Chronos and Kairos, where the further you move into the phases, the less dominant Chronos is, which is the chronological time, and the more dominant Kairos becomes, which is the feeling that you feel like 4 hours could go by in 2 minutes because you're just in the zone.
Yeah. Cool. Good. Excellent. Thank you.